All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here, of course, for a podcast.
Number
27.
28? Yes, 28.
Oh, okay, my bad.
Yeah.
Yes, my bad, guys. But this one we are talking about why we prefer anime over live action.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that, in particular with our channel, we choose to focus on anime.
Right.
Just primarily because we have a subjective, thoughts on that.
We just like it more.
Anime is better.
Yeah.
We prefer it. And we have a couple specific reasons for that. There are 7 in total.
Yes.
But the main one we're going to save towards the end.
Because it is a big one.
Because it's really the main thing that should be it with regards to... It's the closest to the objective things that we believe that makes anime have an edge over live action television.
Because we didn't always think this way. Well, like when we first got into anime, we were like, like cartoons? I don't know if I can take this seriously.
And you know you're an anime fan if the word cartoons trigger you when anyone's describing anime. Because anime is so much more.
Or those Asian shows.
Oh no. Here you go, Jacob. All right, so this first one is in how anime is primarily done through adaptation.
Right.
Versus the week-to-week formula of live-action television.
Yeah.
And live-action television can be adapted.
Oh, it totally can.
Yes.
And there's reasons why it does each different thing. Like the whole week-to-week formula that they have for, like, the medical drama or the cop drama or the, whodunit, all that stuff.
Yep.
The reason they do that is because they want to make sure they turn a profit. Like, they're putting a lot of money into this. They want to make sure it goes somewhere.
And they also want to make sure it goes on for as long as possible.
Exactly.
Yep.
But with anime, they don't have to worry about that because it started small, and then once that got big, then they adapt that so there can be a lot more variety because they know, hey, this at least works even if it's something new because there are these people that love the manga.
Right, and there's also a variety in projects that are being adapted. Some of them are already finished, so you just adapt the material that's already there.
Right.
And then you pick and choose from what you want to put into the anime adaptation, then you're good. Some of them are constantly ongoing, and that has led to problems like Fullmetal Alchemist and such. But oftentimes, because it's taken from, a source material in that regard, you're limited in the ways that it can go wrong. In the areas where the story can kind of segue off into nowhere, where you have, in anime, we call it filler. In live action, they just call that regular television.
Yeah.
Shots fired, but it's true.
It is true. And there were, because like before I got into anime, live action was what I watched, right? And there were so many times where there would be this amazing show that had this incredible premise and the beginning was just so good, but then it kept on going. Maybe the writers, got tired of the show they were working on, ran out of ideas, changed or whatever.
Yep.
And then it just sort of went downhill, and when it finally got canceled, it was a mercy killing. I'm looking at you, heroes.
Yeah, if anything, this is where anime can tend towards this, but the general overall group of, really good critically acclaimed anime out there don't fall into this trap.
Right.
Because one, they're shorter, which is something we'll touch on in a later bit, but they also have a very clear defined direction for the story.
Right.
And the characters, which generally ends up being the characters are better, the story is overall better, and the episode-by-episode structure is somewhat better.
Because, like, if you think about it, adapting from, like, a comic, most comics aren't going to do an episodic formula, right? Because, like, how do you do that in a comic? I mean, I'm guessing you probably could, but it'd be tough. Right. Whereas with a show, that's usually what people would go for as, like, the golden cash cow.
Exactly.
Because then people just keep tuning in
nice little compact stories done on a weekly basis. In anime, it's thought with the adaptation in mind a lot of the time. So
And also,
I mean the manga. I meant
right. And there's so many manga out there that the people that are saying, what anime should we make next? They can pick and choose. Like they can look at it and say, you know what, this one would be good, but it's not far enough along in the story or whatever. And they can just go to a different one.
Exactly. Yeah. There's always something fun and new coming out with anime. With live action, it gets pretty formulaic after a while.
It does, yeah.
And the next one here is a really big one, and I feel like this one is almost as high tier as the one we're going to save to the end, but this is less reliance on actors in anime versus live action. In live action, you have so many people that the original creator's vision has to go through before it gets realized on screen.
Yep, and each one of those people have to pull it off.
Yep.
Like,
Yep,
That's tough.
And actors can sometimes be the make or break bit for a story because, as we all know, characters are the most important thing in a story. And if your actor has to visually and audibly act the whole part out, it's more difficult than someone that just has to audibly act out the part. Whereas also, when they're audibly acting, these voice actors, they are not impinging other people if they decide to take, I'm going to take another 30 minutes on this bit there. Or at least not to the same extent.
Not nearly as much, The production value is much more condensed. It makes it much easier. And here's another thing. With live action shows, most of the time, if the actors do really well, they leave the live action show setting and go to, like, movies and stuff. So you have a harder job, and the good people end up leaving.
You don't have this problem in anime because they're a drawing.
They're a drawing. So it's based on the original creator's ability to understand the story that they want to tell and bring it to life.
And the voice can be shipped, or it can be mailed, or it can be emailed online. There is no need necessarily, unless they don't have access to a studio of that high caliber, for the actor to be physically there 100% of the time. There's just so many production things that goes into, but specifically in the area of story, you're able to believe sometimes a lot more the voice acting than the combination of the acting on the the voice, but also the body language and such. Whereas the artist has full control of the body language. In anime's case.
And the issue that there is with live action, you can kind of see with anime when it comes to like dubs. Not that all dubs are bad or anything.
Correct.
But sometimes it's like the dubs just won't be as good because the voice actors won't be like they just have a tough time.
Something lost in translation.
Something lost in translation. And with anime, one, it starts out in a different language, so you don't have to listen too closely to it if you don't want to. But also, Japan has some amazingly talented voice actors and voice actresses. Like, they are insanely good. Like, us in America, we could learn a thing or two from them.
But also, this is kind of like sacrilege to say, but you can have a voice actor change mid-show, and it's not as dramatic as when an actual, physical actor changes in the middle of a show. I know that there were a lot of people that freaked out when Vegeta changed voices. How many times? Well,
but the less point jarring than when, say, the Mountain changed voice actors.
Or anyone really a live action show and they have to do a recasting. It's a huge deal. It can sometimes break a show entirely. This one we touched upon in the first bit, but also anime has more concise stories. And the reason for that is, of course, they're generally adapting from something that's already finished. But also the source material they're taking it from is a comic book, right? And if you look at like how fast does it take to go through like a comic book, like not long, right? So they can choose however long they want it to take, right? In the show. And I have been burned out on 24 episode, 45 minutes per episode, 8 season shows. That is a lot of time. That don't really go anywhere.
They don't.
If anything, they cycle back and use the same stuff over and over again to tell kind of the same story each season with a different flavor. When you have concise, that doesn't necessarily mean shorter is always good. What it means is efficiency. You have a story that actually goes in bold, exciting directions within a 4-hour, time frame.
And that's the entire story.
Whereas some shows, in 4 hours, they're halfway through the beginning of a story.
And here's another thing. When you have a 45-minute episode, the idea of having that much time, it should be a good thing because that means you should be able to do a lot more. But what ends up happening a lot of the time, if you you don't really notice this, or at least I didn't when I was first watching live action stuff. But when I went to anime and then I went back to live action, I was amazed at how often it would just show characters walking down a hallway or doing these little things that didn't really matter. That would be those few seconds here, few seconds there. That over the course of the episode added up to quite a bit.
There's a lot of time wasted, unfortunately, in live action because ultimately they're just utilizing it to showcase a sense of immersion, which is also something that is not necessarily as needed in some aspects of anime. But more into that.
But live action shows are getting better at this. Like
They are
of the
getting better at
Netflix
this,
shows
that's
that do
true.
like the 8-hour-long episodes or things like that. Like they are learning. They're getting better. But
I would say Game of Thrones is a good example.
yeah,
of this.
Game of Thrones really pioneered that. Yeah.
It has a lot of times slipped up in that regard, but it has a lot of quality, compact, dense storytelling in it as well. This one is more of a minor bit, but anime is more adept at blending genres.
Yeah.
And let's unpack this, Jacob. When you think of a show that's blended genres in particular in anime, what's an example of that?
That's pretty tough. I would say, like, I don't know. I kind of want to just go to like a favorite, like Toradora or something like that.
For sure.
But that doesn't really blend genres. But when I think about live action shows, I will define the show by its genre, basically.
Right.
I can't really do that for anime.
Right.
Like, I can call a live action show, oh yeah, this is a cop drama, and it's a great cop drama. But I would never want to call Toradora, this is a rom-com, you know.
Right.
I wouldn't want to do that.
Right, because it's a romantic comedy, it's also a drama, it's also what we in anime call a slice of life.
Yeah.
There's different aspects to it in that. But in live action shows, you have these few greats that somehow broke through the barrier and achieved greatness, and then they flub it in some other area. But they at least did that. Those shows are like 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000.
Yeah.
Anime does that every other week. And
they don't always do it well, but they keep doing it, so naturally they'll get better at it.
Exactly. One of my favorite shows that I know is not technically anime, but it's also not live action. Avatar: The Last Airbender is very good at blending genres, and is probably one of my great examples of quintessential animated storytelling done at a cut above almost every great live action show out there.
Yeah, like
minus maybe, some if we're going into the critical area. Of
but
things,
even then, we would personally say it's better.
It's probably better.
We just say that, to be safe.
This one is a pretty big deal, but it's also something you don't really think about in live action shows.
You don't. But anime have actual original soundtracks.
What do you know?
Like, why aren't we doing this, West?
Yeah.
Come on.
And I'm sure that some of them do.
Yes,
but
some
like,
of them
do the large percentage of them do? No, really. I don't think so.
And I think that might be a production value thing. Because,
I think so too.
Because if you think about a live action show, they've got to pay, all the actors, and they've got to pay for the sets and everything that they do. Yep. So there
might not be any money left
thinking about music. That's probably not real big on the agenda.
Yeah, let's go mix a couple things in the back.
Yeah, use well-known tracks or whatever, right? And just throw them in there, and that's fine. America has produced some amazing music.
And when we say original soundtracks, you can have like one track, and that's the theme. It's like, everyone knows the theme song to The Office,
right?
But like, we're talking like 12 songs.
Exactly.
We're talking like something that needs a CD to fit on.
Right. Something that you would listen to on your own time.
That's true. Another thing is you will never find people listening to live action TV show music independent of its show.
Like sometimes you'll find that for like a really good blockbuster, right?
For sure.
It has like some crazy Hans Zimmer score.
Right.
But those are the exceptions among movies.
Right. So anime just has a clear advantage in that area, and it's setting atmosphere and bringing in more immersion. It's something that just wows us every time. Like, we watched Made in Abyss recently.
Oh, yeah.
And
amazing
the soundtrack for that was god tier.
Oh, yeah.
It was so good.
Silent voice.
A silent voice.
Killer soundtrack.
Fantastic soundtrack. Yep. And it's just something that they have a definite edge on. And it's not a small thing.
We need to start doing this. Yeah.
And this one, I would say, is one that both are doing well, but anime, again, edges out, in our opinion, is with innovation and progression. There are some shows recently that have pushed the envelope of, like, how much money you can put into a TV show episode, like with Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
They dump tons of money into these episodes. But one of the things with anime you'll see is that very, very big distinction between anime 10 years ago and anime today in just visuals with technology alone.
And it can still be
astonishing.
amazing, the older stuff.
Oh, yes.
But when you look at, like, you are actually getting something that is physically, visually different. Whereas, like, if you were to, say, take, you know, an episodic show live action nowadays versus one 10 years ago.
You might see slightly better things here and there. You might see slightly better cinematography. You might see some slightly better techniques that they've taken from recent big things, but the progression is very gradual.
You can't really tell. Yeah.
With anime, there's just been this constant uptick of just increase that everything the base, you know, run-of-the-mill anime shows have access to.
Yeah.
So that the great of the greats, the Your Names, the silent voices, the I mean, I love to bring up something that's even that old, but the unlimited budget works, you know, of their time.
That's an old show.
That's an old show now. Seem to find ways to efficiently use the money for the visuals in ways that kind of put the efficiency of most Western shows to shame.
And this might be because anime is just like sort of breaking out and becoming a thing now, finally. But
but we don't even need to mention that to show why anime is better than live action, in our opinion.
Or at least why we certainly love it more.
Right, for sure. Next thing is the last bit.
This is the big kahuna.
This is huge, guys. When you think about anime, there's this idea that you can just see anything. There's no limits.
Yep.
And when you think about live action, there's this idea that you're going to get a lens. And you're going to get in that picture, you're going to get that picture of some kind of world. But in anime, there is no lens. You can turn your head and look around wherever you want. Yeah. And this, we're talking about the creativity versus the convenience.
Yep. It is really incredible because there are so many live action shows, you know, back when I watched a lot of live action shows where I'd be like, oh man, this is going to be so awesome. I can't wait till this character with crazy awesome like powers, you know, for like Heroes or something or Once Upon a Time does this awesome thing. And deep down in my heart, I know that's never really going to happen because they can't afford to do that.
Yep.
But in anime, you can do whatever you want.
Yep.
And I know that this is one of those things where, like, people don't like anime because it's a cartoon, you know. But no, that's not a weakness. That is its greatest strength.
Yeah.
Because
when you think about
anything,
when you think about the shows that have come out recently for us that have really left a big impact, like Made in Abyss and My Hero Academia, a couple others, the visual storytelling that happens in these anime are on another level.
Yeah.
And when you get into what it takes in a live action show to communicate visual storytelling that much, you get into something that, you know, might be done in a Oscar baiting movie kind of setting thing. Yeah. But in a television show, they can't even really afford to do that because one of the other aspects of convenience in live action is you need it to be a mainstream wide appeal show.
Yes, because you're putting a lot of money into this and you can't afford to take a risk.
Right, so because anime has lower production costs in a lot of ways, it has the limitless creativity. It is appealing to an audience that doesn't care about the genre as much necessarily.
Yeah,
it is looking at all anime as being, you know, anime. It's the collective.
Right. Yep.
They will consume it if they put the effort into it to make it a creative story.
Yep.
So therefore, someone can like Made in Abyss and My Hero Academia, which are fundamentally like completely different shows.
And they could also they could like Lucky Star along with that, like something that is like completely, totally opposite.
Yep. And then some of the old greats like Psycho Pass and Cowboy Bebop and stuff. And then
Psycho Pass is a bit more than Cowboy Bebop.
I know, it's not that old. I know. Fine.
On our channel.
Neon Genesis Evangelion. Whatever.
Sure, yeah.
There you go.
But the idea that, like, it's one of those things that, for me, it makes me feel like a kid again. Because, you know, when you're a kid, everything's just wonder.
Yep.
You know, everywhere.
Yeah. There's this sense of awe you get when you watch an anime that you simply don't get as often when you watch live action. If anything, live action is a way to turn off your brain. I've talked with a lot of people who are like, when I watch live action shows, they're not saying live action, by the way. They're just saying, when I watch TV, it's a way for me to turn off my brain and wind down. I'm like, okay, is it entertaining?
Anime has those too.
Yeah, anime has those too. But I'm like, is it entertaining? Like, yeah, somewhat. When I talk to people that watch anime, they're like, no, this changed my life.
Yeah.
This went into something that's deep, and it hit me on an emotionally resonant level. And I know that anime creates more obsessive and passionate fans than most other show types do. But this is because of the material that they're working with. The shows you're working with, the stories you're working with, beget different types of fans based on, the material. So, there's a reason why anime has more exciting, more passionate, more energetic fans of their material, because the stories have a lot of heart into them. And live action stories do as well. But unfortunately, they're limited by convenience. They're limited by the sets. They're limited by the money that they have. They're limited by the vision of the studio that's producing it, combined with the writers, combined with the directors, and all these things, and making it into a thing where you can have a great show break out, like Breaking Bad, for instance, or Lost, or Seinfeld. But these shows are not the norm.
Right.
They are not the norm.
And anime still has these issues, but because they're on a much smaller scale, they don't present as big of problems. Right. And one other thing, Ooh. I love books.
Yes, all right? Here we go. This is good. I know what you're going to say.
Books hold a very special place in my heart, and they've kind of been on the decline the last several years, But there's something that books have always had over live-action stories, right? And I'm saying specifically live-action stories because anime kind of competes with them on this.
Yeah.
But it's the idea that a book can take you to a whole nother world. And usually that matters the most for things like sci-fi and fantasy and things like that. Yeah. Right? And then sometimes those books will end up getting adapted into big, blockbuster type things that have a big budget behind them so that they can do justice to the source material.
Exactly.
The Game
Lord
of Thrones,
of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings. Yeah. Those kinds of things. But that doesn't happen very often.
Especially not in TV shows.
Especially not in TV shows.
Especially.
That's... Yeah. There are some bad TV shows.
Especially in the fantasy sci-fi area.
In the fantasy and sci-fi, oh boy. But that was one of those things that made me just love books growing up, right? More than movies and TV shows and stuff.
Same, definitely.
And anime does that too.
Yes.
Like, that is...
It's so crazy to think about.
Like, that is huge.
There
are still, differences between books and anime, and I, like books for the things that it does and anime for the things that it does.
Exactly.
But, oh, man,
it's something that you can only truly experience and you can't really share with anyone. So if you're the kind of person who's like, no, I've seen quite a lot of anime and I enjoy anime, so I understand what you're saying there. You probably have a couple friends in your life that haven't really experienced anime in that way before.
Right. And it usually takes that first one.
Patiently reach out to them and share with them a pretty mainstream, generally acceptable anime and see if it piques their interest, because rarely have I found people that quit anime.
Right.
I have found people that quit live action television. Yes. So mic drop. That's really the only thing left to say. It might be hard
for people to get into anime because at first they're like, this seems weird. But once they get into it, they're like, oh,
what have I been missing out on?
What have I been missing out on? Yeah, exactly.
All right, well, that's it, guys. We got to give a shout out to one of our VIP patrons, Erky Pena. Thank you so much for your support. We appreciate you so much.
Yeah.
And
apologies if we mispronounced that.
Yeah, my bad.
But yeah, it is really awesome. Thank you so much.
Yep. All right, these are getting into our Q&A section from last week's video. First questions from Happy Pants. I love your questions, Happy Pants. They're the best. How would you guys feel about reserving one of your show reaction slots solely to older anime like Monster, while the rest go to more recent or modern anime/TV shows, older being defined as more than 10 years? I think that's somewhat reasonable.
Yeah.
The problem we have is that we are not getting recommended as much older shows
Right.
as we are newer shows.
Yeah, and we've talked about like trying to, break it down into like themes for each slot and stuff like that, so that way like we can get stuff in there that we know is probably going to be really good, but it might not win out on the polls.
Right. We're looking into it. Right now we're focused on making sure that the polls try to get as close to balanced in terms of desire as possible.
Right.
Because every once in a while we've come close, but also every once in a while we'll have one where the show wins by a landslide.
And in the first 12 hours, it's like, oh, which one do you think's going to win this?
Yep, it's already decided.
Yeah,
good question, though. RBM53 asks, did you watch the Crunchyroll Anime Awards? No. I watched some highlights.
Yes.
I watched a Giguk video on it. It was hilarious. If you did, what did you think of the winners and presentation? Well, I know about the winners and such.
Yeah.
I'm happy Made in Abyss won Anime of the Year.
Yes, that one was
I think
so good.
we, if anything, had an off-camera debate about this in that MHA we thought MHA probably would win Anime of the Year.
Yeah.
But if we had to give it in terms of critical reception, Made in Abyss is something truly unique.
And I think personally, that season 2 of My Hero Academia maybe edged out a bit on Made in Abyss, but Made in Abyss came out more recently, and I'm fine with Made in Abyss winning because it was an amazing show and
it deserves the
it deserves it. And MHA kind of rightfully stole like most of the other ones.
Somewhat rightfully.
Yeah, I mean, for most of them, for a lot of them, it's great. It was a great show.
Yeah, I would like to see more categories, though. That's the only thing I would really like to see. And I have nothing critical to say about Crunchyroll's presentation because...
Thanks for doing this.
It's still awesome that they're doing it, and we have no clue how difficult it would be to run something like that.
Yeah.
Doth asks, what would be a bad story that you think everyone should experience? Jacob should probably know more about this than me.
So, because, they're like, is there value in experiencing the bad stuff with the good? I say there is. If someone was getting into, like, anime or something, right? And they specifically wanted to watch, like, shonen or whatever, I would not want to show them, like, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood first, right? Because I would be like, no. Watch something that's good, but not, like, gonna kind of ruin you for other stuff.
Yes,
like,
that's a good point.
And that was something I thought a long time ago. We've watched a lot more, like, awesome shonen since then, so that specific example doesn't really hold true. But... we started on Bleach, and even though I don't like Bleach now, I'm glad I watched it.
So that would be a bad story that you think everyone should experience?
No,
because you're not really answering the question. The question is, what would be a bad story that you think everyone should experience? And I'm gonna say that because this is so influential to Jacob, I can say it's a bad story, and Jacob's gonna disagree. But I think The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya, while a very, very interesting premise, while a very wonky release schedule kind of messed it up and stuff. Yes, but I would say the story in general is not as great as you'd think, but I think everyone needs to experience it because it's really creative and it does something truly unique.
Don't worry, that opinion of it being a bad story will change when you watch Disappearance.
Yeah,
Ghost Stories. There you go.
Oh,
the dub.
The Ghost Stories dub. There you go.
Bad story.
Worst story ever.
Worst story ever.
Everyone needs to experience it. Yes, thank you, Jacob. I forgot about that one. Is there? Yes, you want to answer that question. Are you worried that Incredibles 2 won't live up to the hype? What is your favorite Pixar film? I am worried that Incredibles 2 won't live up to the hype. Because I think that they're going to rehash the plot structure in a lot of ways from Incredibles 1, but put a fun twist in it on the antagonist side of things.
Okay. Yeah, because see, I think that Incredibles 2, in a lot of ways, it's impossible to live up to the hype.
Yes.
Right?
Sure.
But I think it'll be a great movie.
For sure. What's your favorite Pixar film, Jacob? I know what mine is. 100%.
Well, you go first. Up. Oh, that is a great one.
Up is just amazing. If I had to choose another one, it would be Inside Out. But yeah, I would say Up or Inside Out.
Was Wreck-It Ralph Pixar?
No,
that's right.
No.
Yeah.
No. Toy Story.
Yeah, I mean, would it be cheating to say Toy Story?
No. Like, but which one? Toy Story 1, 2, or 3?
Toy Story 1.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Toy Story 1 is really good.
Toy Story 1's great.
Toy Story really shaped a lot of my
Monsters
story
Inc.
thing. Monsters Inc.
Monsters Inc.
You did like that one a lot.
Yeah, Monsters Inc. That is my favorite Pixar movie.
Awesome. Air Anonymous asks, do you think it is preferable to sacrifice realism in writing to achieve greater appeal?
An example would be tsundere. Nobody would want one in real life, but people love them in fiction. Well,
yes.
Yes, because the thing
that's
is,
the short answer from me.
Because
you give the long answer.
Because here's the thing. People do not watch stories because they want realism. Sometimes they do, but usually they want it because they want an escape. They want something different. They want something more, especially if you're going into like sci-fi, fantasy, things like that. But even when you're going into like rom-coms,
almost everything is unrealistic when it comes to fictional storytelling.
Yeah, even the stuff that tries to be like gritty, like realistic, like say like Game of Thrones, you know. Like,
well, no, but even the most basic cop drama is unrealistic.
Yeah, exactly. Like one way that I like this is a good one that I heard in a Brandon Sanderson lecture. Joss Whedon, amazing dialogue. No one is that witty.
Yep.
Yeah.
So in general, yes, but I would say it's also just up to your decision as the creator, the writer.
And make sure you're not like taking like a hit on something like. For tsunderes, right? Bad tsunderes really rub me the wrong way. But I love it when there's a good tsundere in a show.
Yeah.
So.
All right, William San asks, series is bad, but you like it. And what would you rather write? Drama, romance, comedy? Oh, interesting question. So I don't really have any series that are bad, but I like. Primarily because I can't blend my subjective opinion from the objectivity of the story's critical, reception and stuff. But if I was to go and look at, say, my anime list and look at every single show that I like, none of them are really below a 7 out of 10. So
I would say I would say this show isn't bad, but Caleb mentioned it before. But Haruhi, I love that show. I know it has a lot of problems, and Endless Eight being the main one.
Yeah,
but I still love it, and that's one of those things where when you love a show or a story or whatever so much, the faults stop mattering.
Yeah. I would also say this is another random one, but I actually really love the Star Wars Clone Wars show, and I would say that's bad in a lot of ways. It has a lot of episodes that you should just skip. I'd say there's about 30 to 40 episodes that you just don't need to watch, but I really enjoy it. So that's because I'm a Star Wars fan. Yeah. But there you go. If I really like to write drama. I do not like to write comedy. Yeah, I'm really bad at writing comedy. I have no sense of humor.
Like with this, I would say like I have to say drama. Mm-hmm. If with say like romance, my favorite romances have some drama in there or have some comedy in there or a mix of all
blend
three.
Them, yeah.
Yeah. So if it makes me cry, I love it.
Yeah. Daria Lappy asks, do you guys like using plot outlines? Yes, I do. I know Jacob doesn't as much.
I don't as much. Like because this person's saying like they don't like them because it makes them feel restricted.
Right.
A lot of times you can basically just write a quick draft like discovery writing style and then have that be your plot outline.
Yeah.
That way you're not feeling restricted.
This is back into our video, plug our previous video in here about writing tips for new writers.
Yes.
Write quickly first. Write and finish your story without editing first.
Outline should work for you.
That essentially is my outline. Guys, sometimes my writing is me saying, this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened. Yep. That can't be in a final draft at all.
No.
That's basically an outline, though, right?
Yep.
In an outline, you basically just write out what happens in order. That's it. And that sometimes happens in writing where I'll hit writer's block. Is this happened, then this happened, then this happened. So yeah.
What is your favorite anime genre?
Tough. I would say any kind of thriller genre. I've really enjoyed most anything that has some kind of mystery element. So mystery, thriller.
When it is well executed, and that is the point. Romance or drama.
For sure.
Yeah.
What is your favorite book series? Well, this is kind of boring answer, but Lord of the Rings, man. I've probably read Lord of the Rings a dozen times.
Lord of the Rings is amazing.
I don't know any other book series that has gotten me to fall asleep better at night the day I read it.
Oh,
So
interesting.
when I read Lord of the Rings, there's something about it that physically puts me at ease in such a
Cool.
relaxing way. There's a lot of other stories out there where they get you hyped, and I think like the Red
Sure.
Rising series that we've read recently, we've been raving about to a bunch of
Yeah.
other people.
Great
It
series.
gets your blood pumping, and you're just because things happen. In Lord of the
They do.
Rings, you're taken on a journey, and it's beautiful. So
All right,
Yeah.
cool.
me.
Since those two have already been mentioned, I just got to give a shout out to the Song of Ice and Fire series because
yeah, Game
it's
of Thrones.
amazing. It's not
Pretty
finished, but it's amazing.
Yep. Next question comes from Taki Silverfield. Question: if someone wants to make a shonen anime/manga, do you think their first chapter should be impactful? If so, what kind of things do you think will make the reader wanting more in the next chapter?
Yes.
Yes, I would say.
This
why
goes
wouldn't
beyond
you?
shonen and manga and stuff. Like
Yes.
just having a gripping beginning. Absolutely.
Yeah, beginnings are almost more important than endings in a way.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, because otherwise they won't get to the ending.
Yeah.
If like my personal answer to this question is just watch the first episode of My Hero Academia.
Yeah.
Like that is
Yeah.
my ideal beginning for a shonen like story.
Yeah, it's
just
just pretty good. Especially because they follow it up with the next
With
two episodes.
the next two episodes, which are
Yeah.
amazing. So
So,
Yeah.
yeah. The next question comes from Summer Looney. How to make a character likable as well as realistic in terms of human nature, i.e. a character dealing with trauma realistically or rallying support reasonably. This is something that I've actually wanted to write more and more about, is the way that I do it in a cheating way is I basically assume I'm dealing with that kind of stuff. I develop temporary schizophrenia and assume I have the problem that they're dealing with, and I take maybe a moment from my past and blow it up intentionally to make it more dramatic for the story, and use that as a template for kind of writing out what kind of emotional responses and reactions and environmental things would make sense for that. But oftentimes I feel a little bit of cognitive dissonance because it's not something that actually happened to me.
Okay.
So another great way to do it is just to ask people that have had experiences like that you're close with and are willing to open up about like certain aspects about it.
Gotcha.
So maybe just having some good questions in order
Okay.
prior to that. But also
Well,
watch stuff that deals with that. So
Yeah.
anyways, go
What
ahead.
I would say is that anytime you talk about a character being likable, that basically equates in my mind to struggle. Unless you're
Yes.
talking about some
Oh,
sort
yes,
of rule
struggle.
of cool character.
Yes.
But struggle is why we read stories. That's why stories exist. If there wasn't a problem, there wouldn't be a story. If the problem was easy to overcome, there wouldn't be a story. So
I
anytime
missed that part where he said how to make a character likable as well
yeah,
as realistic.
as well as realistic. So
Yeah.
when you're trying to, so the realism thing of like, yeah, putting yourself in that situation, yes, fantastic, awesome, really get to know the character,
But
so you know
struggle,
how they
yeah.
would respond. But make sure the struggle's in there.
Yep.
Make sure that the reader knows that if they're going through something tough, if they do something that's stupid or a bit mean or whatever, something that would normally make them unlikable, show how much how eaten up they are about something else or whatever.
Right.
You can have a character that's a complete asshole, but then you say, oh, their wife died, they have 4 kids, and they have, a lung problem, and they're, working in a mine. Like,
Yeah.
and suddenly it's like, oh, now,
okay.
now it's like, all right, now you feel for them a bit more than
A
if
little
they
bit
were
more.
just an asshole, right?
Right. Next question comes from Yuri Vickers. How do you guys feel about Stroheim? And do you believe characters like him can work in other stories, or is there a pass for him due to JoJo already being such a bizarre show? Yes. And
So
it's
Okay.
interesting. It's
Yeah,
interesting.
so-
The next part is
with Stroheim, okay, so for those of you who
We
don't
like
know,
Stroheim.
We love Stroheim.
Yes.
For those of you who don't know, he's a Nazi in the show called JoJo's Bizarre
Yes.
Adventure. Now, one of the reasons that I think he works is one, you don't really show him doing like
Nazi
things,
things, yeah.
in the show. Like you show it at like the very beginning, but then he has like this sort of redemption deal, and then from that point on, he's a Nazi. But that's not a main part of the story. So
it's not a main part of his character after he's been essentially
Right.
reborn.
Exactly.
That's the main thing, is that Stroheim Reborn was way more interesting than Stroheim prior to
Yeah, we
that.
didn't care at all about Stroheim at the beginning, right? We're like,
Right.
who is this guy?
Stroheim is the same. Stroheim has a lot of the same effect that Speedwagon has. In that the Joestars attract the brother kind of mentality around the characters they interact with Caesar and all the above, yada yada yada.
And
so Stroheim is just the German bro.
Right.
At that point in the story.
Yep.
But in other stories, you'd have to be a little bit careful with that. I think that there's a lot of stories that handle, if we're talking specifically about that type of character, this is completely off the wall, but this is just a story that's a little bit hard to watch and stuff. But The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, I would just say if you haven't watched that or read it, do that.
Bring a box of tissues.
Yes, bring a box of tissues. But I would say there's ways to make a character likable where their ideology is still disgusting.
Yeah.
And I will leave it at that.
And we do need more things like that in stories.
Yes.
Because it's a contradiction.
It's a contradiction. Contradictions are interesting if executed well.
Yep.
That's all we'll say on that. Duncan Fife asks, do you guys find it easier to style characters after yourselves or people you know, or just ideas that pop in your head that are unlike anyone you know? Probably unlike anyone.
Oh, okay.
For me,
I would say there's that element of unlike anyone I know, but then I always throw some slight aspect of myself into the mix so that I have a tether to them, basically.
But style is an interesting verb because with style you could be talking about the visual appearance, which is what I think you're talking about. But Jacob, you're talking about
who that person is.
The character's identity, yes. So in terms of look, no, I don't use people that I know. I generally, if anything, rip off little aspects of other created works in ways that are totally not plagiarizing at all. But not really with other people I know.
Yeah.
Oh, question. Do you guys ever experience writer's block?
And this is from Koi Fan.
Yes, and I just mentioned that. Yes, and what's the best way to go about that? Write dumb writing. Just do dumb writing.
Yeah. If you are writing, you will start to write better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like speaking.
Exactly.
Sort of.
Well, no, but it kind of can. That whole idea of externally processing, because and
externally processing.
And become okay with the idea that your first draft is going to suck no matter what, and probably your second and third too.
Exactly.
So just go with it.
Write lots of drafts
and leave all the quality stuff to the editor. And if the editor's you're not the editor right now.
Yep.
So,
there you go. How about really wanting to write something but having no ideas about what? So if you are in a place where you just want to write, but you don't know where to start, there are some really cool Reddit threads out there where they'll just give you a story idea starting point as a phrase. And I forgot what they're called, but we'll look them up after, before we're done editing this, and we can link them in the description.
Yeah, but there are a lot of great ones there. Also, one of the things that I like to do is I say, what's the story that I wish I could watch or read right now?
Oh, sure.
Be
the change you want to see in the world.
Exactly.
You're why is no one making this story? Well, why don't you do it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And if there's something of okay, well, I don't know what I want that to look like, one of the things I like to do is say basically, what do you want the main impression on the audience to be? Whether that's from the style and aesthetic, like with JoJo's, or whether it's some crazy ending.
That's a good point.
Or whatever you want it to be. Come up with that and then form the story around that.
For sure. Gimmick asks, how would you guys weigh watching a show that gives you a unique experience versus watching a show that is superior execution of what you've already seen?
I love both.
Yeah, it's a very simple thing, but we don't really weigh them. We just watch them and take the merits from each individually.
There are a lot of shows that I know of that are they're not very great shows, but I love them because they do that one thing that I've never seen before.
Right. So, yeah, for sure. Erwin Smith asks, what anime character do you identify with the most? I have no idea.
I don't know.
I don't have the slightest clue. We'll leave an answer in a pinned comment.
Yeah,
we have no idea. Little Dusk asks, what real-world mythology do you find the most interesting? Are there any mythologies or religions you want to be explored further in anime, books, movies, etc.? Yes, I find mythology really interesting with regards to some of the old, I would say some of the old like Egyptian stuff, like some of the old like even some of the old stuff with the Greeks and stuff. But I would say with Egyptian, there's a lot of really interesting ideas about death and kind of the whole idea of what the whole relationship between life and death is. I find really interesting. So I would say nothing really on the ones that I would want to see explored further, because I'm just sure my experience is limited in one of these, and I can just go searching for it and find it.
Yeah.
So if anything, those are the ones I find the most interesting. But what about you?
Right. Talking about real world mythology, that just makes me think of the Fate series. So like I love that they do that, and they take a bunch of different mythologies and throw them together, even if it's like, you know, with some creative license.
Well, those are more legends, but but like mythological, like, you know, like different myth, because there's, you know, there's Norse, there's Greek, there's Egyptian, there's a whole bunch of others.
So there's probably
as well
a good distinction there to be had, but I don't know a whole lot about like real world mythology.
Gotcha.
I know more about fictional mythology than I do about real world mythology. So
real talk. We're writers here. We don't delve in the real world. That's boring. But anyway, we'll leave an answer for you, Erwin Smith, about that. Which anime character do we identify with?
That's
the most?
A good one.
It's a very tough one to figure out.
Oh boy.
But yeah, guys.
I know. Rock from Black Lagoon.
Oh,
or at least I certainly did at one point.
Nice. Dang it! Now I have to come up with something really quickly. I'm just gonna choose an easy answer right now, because I could come up with one later, but I really identified a lot with Deku.
That's actually probably more than Rock.
Really
such a good
appreciated his story. It's just done really well.
Yeah. Okay, good job.
But if I had to choose someone specifically for My Hero Academia, we've already answered this question. I'm Ida, straight up and forward. I am all hands motions in real life. You have yet to meet me, and my hands just talking on my behalf. But anyways, guys, if you would like to leave us a question for our next podcast, put one in the comments down below, and we'll answer at the end of our next week's podcast. And we'll see you in the next one. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time.